Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It happened in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York in Manhattan. People were still settling into their seats when Taylor Swift walked into the courtroom. There was no music, no cameras flashing, no cheering crowd, just a cold silence that wrapped around her like a shroud. Her hair was tied back, her eyes serious, and her hands were shaking. This wasn't a performance. This was the beginning of something nobody saw coming. She didn't waste time. "I kept quiet for years because I was scared," she said, looking directly at the judge. "But I can't keep protecting someone who used fear to control everyone." There was a gasp in the courtroom. A man in the back whispered, "She's really doing it." And she did. What followed was a testimony no one will ever forget. Taylor pulled out a worn leather notebook. The pages were bent, torn in places. "This," she said, "is where I kept everything. The texts, the threats, the meetings, all of it." She started with a night in 2016, a dinner at a private house in the Hollywood Hills. "It was supposed to be a creative meeting," she said. "Just artists, no pressure, but Diddy was there, and everything changed." According to Taylor, Diddy wasn't just part of the music industry. He was playing it like chess. He knew who to push up and who to keep quiet, who to scare, who to pay. Her voice cracked on that last word. The room was dead silent. Then came the first piece of evidence. A scratched-up silver flash drive, labeled in shaky red marker, "Don't." She handed it to the bailiff. The contents, later described by her attorney, included voice memos from a hidden iPhone, secretly recorded during label meetings. In one of them, a male voice that analysts confirmed matched Diddy's voice print is heard saying, "If she doesn't, play ball, we bury her next album. Simple." Taylor looked down. "That album was Reputation," she said. "Now you know why it sounded the way it did." She went on. One by one, she described other artists, unnamed for now, who'd allegedly been guided by Diddy. Not with kindness, but with power. He decided which women could rise, which ones got blocked, which songs got airplay. It wasn't just shady, it was like a system. Then she said a name. Emily Reyes, a rising pop singer in 2019. Blonde, 21, with a breakout single that everyone said was the next big thing, until it vanished from the radio 1 week after it dropped. She was told to sign with a preferred manager linked to Diddy, Taylor explained. When she said no, her tours got canceled. Her streaming numbers froze. She disappeared. In a statement read aloud in court, Emily wrote, "I started getting strange texts, photos of my family, my little brother's school. I stopped singing. After that," Taylor paused. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "She told me she still wakes up thinking someone's watching her. But not everyone believes it. Some music execs still claim it's all coincidence, that artists burn out, that tours fail. It's just the business, they say." But others in the courtroom, longtime industry people, sat with their heads down, not speaking, not blinking, like they knew. And then came the contract, a printed document, signed and dated, showing Taylor was once offered a $20 million bonus if she joined the collective, a vague clause reportedly tied to media partnerships, and silence agreements. She never signed. "I walked away," she said. But some didn't. Some couldn't. Nobody said a word. The air felt too heavy. And then Judge Hernandez asked, "Ms. Swift, are you willing to name any other participants in what you're describing?" Taylor closed the notebook. "Not yet," she said. "But if I have to, I will." Then she looked up, straight at Diddy, sitting across the courtroom. That was when he did something no one expected. He smiled. And suddenly Taylor's hands clenched the table, because she knew he still wasn't scared. The moment Diddy smiled, the energy insane. The courtroom changed. Taylor didn't flinch. She just stared at him like she was studying a storm she'd seen before, one she'd survived. Her lawyer leaned over and whispered something, but she waved him off. Judge Hernandez cleared his throat. "Ms. Swift, the court recognizes your right to withhold names, for now, but we need more detail. You say this was a system. Show us how it worked." Taylor opened her notebook again. This time the page was folded over twice. Taped inside was a photo, a blurry shot of what looked like a back room in a downtown club. 4 people seated around a long table, faces mostly hidden in shadow, except one, a man in sunglasses, leaning forward with his hand over a contract with no label name on it. "That's not a normal contract," Taylor said. "Those aren't even official label documents. That's something else, something underground. These were loyalty agreements." She pointed to the timestamp, October 2017, 2:03 a.m. I was invited to that meeting. I said no. A friend went instead. The friend was Lena Marlowe, another name the public might remember, a songwriter who worked on some of Taylor's earlier albums. Lena disappeared from the music scene after 2018. No public statement. No new credits. Taylor exhaled. Lena called me after that night. She said she couldn't talk on the phone, only in person. When I saw her, she looked terrified. Lena's testimony, entered via sealed affidavit and now unsealed by court order, described a chilling scene, a windowless room, phones placed in locked drawers, NDAs already printed out and waiting, Diddy at the head of the table with 2 assistants and a man Lena only referred to as the Whisperer. The agreement offered Lena $250,000 in upfront cash, a ghostwriting deal on multiple tracks, and guaranteed publishing rights. All she had to do was promise not to work with a list of outside artists, and to never speak on any deals she witnessed. She signed. But according to Lena's affidavit, something changed when she heard a conversation between Diddy and another executive that night. The note, handwritten and turned in as evidence, read, "Find out if Taylor's talking to Republic Records. If she is, we ice her. Ice." The court asked what that meant. Taylor didn't blink. "It means kill the buzz, pull support, turn the industry against you. It's like you're erased." And she almost was. She said that after her deal with Big Machine ended, she was warned. Quietly and repeatedly. One guy, someone I trusted, texted me, "Stop asking questions about the past. Just sing and smile." I never saw him again. The courtroom heard more. A digital folder pulled from a recovered laptop belonging to a former tour manager showed emails sent from a private encrypted server. One email, from a sender tagged the firm black, read, "Status. Swift neutralized. Still monitoring Gomez and Grande." The gallery went silent again. Selena? Ariana? Were they being watched too? Nobody could say for sure. But the judge leaned forward now, clearly unsettled. Then came the victim for part 2. Quentin Blake. Not a singer. Not a name most people would recognize. Just a junior sound engineer who worked on mixing demos at a West Hollywood studio. In 2020, Quentin recorded a backing track for a female artist he refused to name. Something about the song stood out. It had the same eerie production style that Diddy was rumored to control behind closed doors. Dark synths, slowed reverb, layers that sounded like echoes of other tracks. When Quentin asked where the stems had come from, he got no answer. A week later, he was let go. And a month after that, someone broke into his apartment. Nothing was taken, except his external hard drive. Quentin filed a report. The police never followed up. But 3 months later, he showed up at a private indie label in Chicago with a manila envelope and a shaky voice. "I think I know what's going on," he told the producer. "And it's not just about music. It's about control." That envelope was passed around in silence this week, hand to hand, until it reached the court. Inside were 2 items. A USB drive marked with a single letter, PA contract, unsigned, labeled Production Loyalty Agreement, Artist Shadow Assets. Nobody knew what Artist Shadow Assets meant, but it was listed under confidential holdings. Some believe it's nothing. Legal jargon, paper trails that don't lead anywhere. But others, those who've been around, say it's a code. A way to own artists without ever signing them. A way to control the voice behind the scenes. Quentin's last known statement, given to an independent journalist in 2022, said, "They don't need to touch your masters to own you. They just need to scare you enough to stay silent." The journalist never published the story. Their office was broken into 2 days later, and then Taylor looked down again. "There are more. A lot more. But if I name them, they'll get hurt. Judge." Hernandez nodded slowly. "Then let's take a break," he said. "We'll reconvene in 30 minutes. As Taylor stood, someone behind the gallery shouted, "What are you so afraid of?" She turned. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said, but her hands were still shaking. The courtroom lights were dimmed slightly when the drive labeled P was plugged in. An IT specialist from the Department of Justice stepped forward, carefully, like they were handling evidence from a crime scene, which, in a way, they were. The screen flickered once. Then a folder opened. Inside were 4 subfolders, each marked by initials. C-Mag's everyone in the room seemed to stop breathing. Ariana Grande, Selena Gomez, Emily Reyes, Taylor Swift. Each folder contained production files, legal documents, and internal memos. But what made the courtroom truly freeze was a single audio file in the TS folder. It was only 29 seconds long, but it said everything. A voice. Diddy's, unmistakably calm, said, She thinks she owns her sound. She doesn't. We built it. We can take it back anytime. Taylor's jaw clenched. She stared at the screen like she was trying to burn it down with her eyes. The judge turned to the technician. Where did this file come from? The answer was quiet. It was recovered from a server buried inside a metadata archive. The drive that stored it wasn't standard, military-grade encryption, but someone forgot to delete the cache folder. Taylor whispered. They never thought anyone would find it. Then came another name, Aubrey Lynn. She wasn't a household name, not a chart topper, just a gifted producer who used to work with multiple labels in LA. In 2021, she disappeared from the industry. No reason. No press release, nothing. But in a surprise motion, her sister submitted a notarized letter, Aubrey's own handwriting, written just before she left music for good. The letter said, I was told to remix a demo into something familiar, something that would match Swift's DNA but not feel like a copy. I asked who the original artist was. They said, that doesn't matter. You're not supposed to ask. That's when I knew. They weren't stealing songs. They were stealing styles, whole identities. Aubrey's note ended with a final, chilling line. They don't need to erase you. They just build a version of you and let the original fade. And it worked. Aubrey walked away before she could be next. The prosecution called this the echo theory, a pattern of copy building, influence stealing, and emotional isolation used to keep control while staying in the shadows. Like a puppet master with no fingerprints. Some people still didn't believe it, but then they played one last file. From the SG folder, a distorted phone call. Hard to hear, but the court audio team had cleaned it up. Selena's voice, tired, upset. I said no. And now everything's quiet. My team's gone cold. Every call is ignored. Pause. Then, I don't know who's pulling the strings, but I know who's at the center. She didn't say Diddy's name. She didn't have to. Taylor sat down. As the audio ended, her hands were in her lap, clenched. Quietly, she said, I tried to warn them. I tried to tell them what he was doing, but no one wanted to listen. The judge looked up from his notes. You said earlier this wasn't about revenge. What is it about, Mrs. Swift? Taylor answered without looking up. It's about what he stole from all of us, and how he made us feel like we had to thank him for it. The room was still for a long time. Then came the last document of the day. A handwritten ledger, scanned and uploaded by a whistleblower known only as MT. It tracked monthly payments, unofficial, off-contract, routed through LLCs and shell companies. Each payment had a note. Secured influence. Compliance achieved. Buzz cooled. Reputation suppressed. And then a single line at the bottom of the page. TS. Balance. Postponed. Pending renegotiation. Taylor stared at that line. You could tell this was personal. And then, without warning, a man in the courtroom gallery stood up. Excuse me, he said, holding up a manila folder. I have something to add. Security rushed toward him, but Taylor raised her hand. Let him speak. The man's name was Brian Leff, a former mid-level exec at a now-defunct talent management firm. His folder contained screenshots, text chains, calendar invites, and internal Slack messages from 2019. Every one of them referenced a single event, the silent signing party, an unlisted gathering. No music, no press, just contracts. Taylor wasn't invited, Brian said, but her name was brought up multiple times. I remember Diddy saying, she's drifting. If she won't join, we control her orbit. He looked sick saying it. Everything I believed about this business died that night. And with that, he sat down, eyes glassy. Taylor didn't speak. She didn't have to. The court was adjourned for the day, but no one moved. They just sat there. Some angry, some stunned, some suddenly remembering things they thought they had forgotten. Outside, the streets of Manhattan buzzed with people who had no idea what had just been said. And inside, one question lingered in the air like smoke. What happens when the people who made the music finally start telling the truth? By the time court resumed the next morning, a quiet tension blanketed the room. There were more reporters now, more lawyers, and this time security was tighter. Nobody wanted a repeat of yesterday's disruption, though some whispered it wasn't a disruption at all. It was a crack in the wall. Taylor entered through a side door. No makeup, hair pinned back. Her eyes didn't search the room. She already knew who was watching. The judge called the court to order. The next witness stepped up, Monica Beltran, a former publishing coordinator for one of the biggest distribution companies in the world. She wasn't famous. She looked like someone you'd walk past in a hallway and never notice. But her voice, steady, Her notes? Devastating. She came with a black spiral notebook filled with invoice codes, signature initials, and transaction dates. The pages were smudged, highlighted, dog-eared. This wasn't a hit piece. This was someone who had been watching quietly for years. I didn't know what I was seeing at first, Monica said. It looked like extra payments, retainer, bonuses, reallocation fees. But they were all tied to one central account, used only when specific artists resisted guidance. She held up one page, a table with columns. Date, artist, initials, action. Taken notes 03-17-18T. S album delay. Refused optics reshaping 05-11-19S.G tour. Suspension. Requested team change 08-06-20E. Shadow listing. Declined loyalty draft. What's shadow listing? The judge asked. Monica hesitated, then said softly, "It's when your name stops appearing in things. Awards, nominations, best of playlists. You still exist, but only just." She turned the page. "There's an entire infrastructure dedicated to it. We called it the orbit system." Diddy's lawyer immediately objected. "There's no proof Mr. Combs created this so-called system. These are industry-wide trends. My client doesn't run the internet." Monica didn't blink. "I'm not saying he runs the internet. I'm saying he knew how to run fear." And then she said the name of the next victim, Nico Vega, a 19-year-old breakout R&B artist from Detroit who nearly topped the charts in 2022. A raw voice, a soul sound nobody could fake, until it disappeared. According to Monica, Nico had been in talks for a collaborative EP with two bigger artists under Diddy's umbrella. But when he asked to bring in his own legal team to review the contract, the call stopped, then the messages, then the invites. Then Nico posted a now-deleted video where he said, "I was told I'd get farther if I shut up and followed. But I didn't come here to be someone else's echo." He hasn't released music since. Court records show Nico later received a letter from an anonymous firm offering him a 6-figure retreat bonus if he agreed to exit the public space for creative realignment. He never signed. But he also never reappeared. Monica's notebook contained a printed screenshot of a message sent to her company's internal Slack, sent under the name CH. It read, "Nico was warned. Let him sit in silence for a while. He'll learn. Or he won't." There was no official record of who CH was. Some believe it stands for a coordinator known as Caleb Harris, a quiet handler said to be part of the orbit maintenance structure. He hasn't been seen in public since 2021. Then, Judge Hernandez asked Taylor a direct question. "Ms. Swift, are you prepared to share how this affected your personal safety?" Taylor was quiet. Then she nodded. "After I refused to sign the media alignment deal in 2018, I started getting letters. Not threats. Worse. Mock sympathy." She held up one. "You're so brave standing alone like that. You must feel so isolated. Remember, the stage is only warm when the lights are on. What happens when they turn off?" Then came the envelope. She pulled it from her bag like it weighed 50 pounds. Inside was a single photograph, her, walking alone at night, outside a studio in Nashville. The photo was taken from inside a car. You could see the rain on the windshield. You could see the camera flash from her eyes. It was postmarked with no return address. But the handwriting matched another envelope that had been traced to a shell company, one of the same companies from Monica's notebook. That was the moment her security detail doubled. That was the moment she stopped answering blocked calls. That picture broke something in me, she said. "I thought I had power. I didn't. I just had visibility." Diddy sat still as stone. He hadn't said a word in court, not once. His eyes moved sometimes, but mostly he looked like he was waiting for something. Then Taylor said something nobody expected. "I don't want him to go to prison," she said. "That would make him a martyr. I want people to see what he did, to know, to remember." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You're not seeking punishment?" She shook her head. "I'm seeking freedom. Not just for me, for every artist who was told they didn't own their own voice." The room sat in silence. And then Monica whispered, "They're going to try to erase this." The judge looked at her. She repeated it louder. "They always do." Next, the one document Taylor wasn't supposed to find, and the missing name behind the whisperer. 30 minutes into the final session, the courtroom lights flickered. It wasn't a power outage, just a glitch, but it made the room feel colder, like something was watching. Taylor sat still. She hadn't spoken since the break. Her lawyer shuffled papers, but she didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on one item, A torn page, half burned at the edges, taken from a journal belonging to a former insider only known by the court as Source 19. The paper had been mailed, anonymously to Taylor's team 3 weeks before the trial began. The page wasn't typed. It was written in blue ink, rushed, with words scratched out and rewritten. Some of it was hard to read, but what remained was clear enough. He doesn't talk to people directly. That's what the whisperer is for. He's the one who makes sure things get done without leaving a trail. Even Diddy said, "He's my shadow." No one questions the shadow. Below that line was a single name, scribbled, crossed out, then rewritten again in bold capital letters. R. Mills Nobody in the courtroom had heard that name before. Not in this context. Then Taylor's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to submit a final item into evidence. It's a contract we found by accident." He handed it to the bailiff. This document was wedged inside a mislabeled folder marked Archived Royalties 2014-2015. The judge raised an eyebrow. "And what is it?" The lawyer cleared his throat. "It's a private amendment to a publishing deal. Hidden, never filed. Signed by Robbie Mills, a known media attorney, acting on behalf of an unnamed third party." At the bottom, scrawled in faint ink, was the signature S. Combs. Next to it, a clause highlighted in yellow. "Artist shall comply with strategic redirection. Vocal aesthetic may be restructured using uncredited contributors. Consent assumed if artist fails to object within 14 days. In plain terms, if you didn't notice they changed your sound, they owned it. If you didn't fight back within 2 weeks, you had agreed." Taylor was shaking. "That's how they got me," she said. "That's how they got all of us. Not with force, with silence." Then the judge asked one final question. "Ms. Swift, can you tell the court how this finally ended? How the system broke down?" Taylor took a breath, a long one. "In 2021, someone called me. A blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. It was a woman. She said she used to work in one of Diddy's satellite teams. She didn't give her name. She just said," her voice cracked, "he doesn't think you'll fight him. He thinks you'll sing and move on. Prove him wrong." That call changed everything. That's when Taylor started digging. That's when she started gathering files, reconnecting with people who had gone silent, visiting old studios, revisiting contracts from her early days, looking at things she hadn't wanted to see before. "And every time I looked," she said, "I found fingerprints. Not always obvious, but always there." One of the final exhibits submitted to the court was a voice memo. A man speaking, barely, above a whisper. The court verified it as Robbie Mills, taken from a phone backup dated July 2022. He always said if it crumbles, let it. Just don't let them trace it back to the hand that built it. That line said it all. The room went quiet. Again, even Diddy looked down, and then came the final victim. Her name was Samira Wells, a jazz singer from New Orleans. She never made it to mainstream charts. She didn't even have a record deal. But according to Taylor, Samira had something the industry wanted, a sound, soft, gritty, soulful. Her demo, recorded in 2017, was passed around at private listening parties. One of the attendees, Diddy. 2 years later, Samira's voice was gone, but her sound wasn't. A nearly identical tone appeared on a hit single by a major artist. Same melody, same phrasing, different name. Samira tried to get legal help. She was told she had no grounds. No deal meant no rights. She posted a 4-minute video online saying, "They stole my voice," and everyone applauded them for it. She died by suicide 6 months later. Taylor paused, then said, "I never got to meet her, but I promised myself, if I ever had the chance, I'd speak for her." And she did. The courtroom was silent. Not a single phone rang. Not a single lawyer moved. Then Judge Hernandez stood. "We will now enter recess before rendering the next steps in this matter. But let me be clear, what's been presented here today will not disappear." As Taylor stood to leave, someone called her name. She turned. A girl, maybe 16, sitting in the back. Eyes red from crying, she whispered, barely audible, "Thank you." Taylor nodded, just once, and then she walked out of the courtroom. Not a pop star, not a performer, just someone who finally said the thing nobody wanted to say. The system wasn't broken. It was designed this way,